Well, hey, sports fans, it's Larry Eater with RunBlogRun. This is Athletics Chat 20. You know the deal. Stuart Weir, he's the charming guy in the blue sweater with his earphones on in his great library. I love the German and French dictionaries right there. He's in Oxford, England, the intellectual capital of the world. And this is Larry Eater. I'm in San Jose, California, sitting in my parents' backyard watching hummingbirds zip around and honeybees get the last little flowers of the year. So, Stuart, greetings. How are you?
Hello, I'm fine. And just so you know,
Yeah.
many years ago, I got a degree in French and German.
Really?
Hmm.
Awesome. In the language, huh?
Yes.
Wow, I'm impressed. I'm impressed. French is tough enough for me. German would be really tough.
Hmm.
That's pretty
Well, there you
awesome.
are.
Okay, well, we'll start translating your articles into Deutsche too. Okay, that would go over well. So
I'm sure it would.
we've got some lively topics today. Doha Diamond League, last Diamond League meet of the season. What did you think?
Yeah, I thought they did it well. I always love going to Doha.
Mm-hmm.
I think the event is always put on well. And we saw some stellar performances.
Yes.
I mean, Elaine Thompson has really almost been in hibernation since
Yeah.
2016 Olympics, and she's had all sorts of injuries. And then just suddenly she comes out in two diamond leagues and runs world fastest time, 10:86. And I'm sure she did that just because Shelley Ann had done 10:87.
Mm-hmm.
So really interesting to see the form that she's in. Helen O'Beary, who's just so talented, producing the goods. Interestingly, I mean, one's almost disappointed with the pole vault that no one went over 6 meters. But
Yeah.
we saw Duplantis, Lavillenie, and Sam Kendricks all doing the same height, and Mondo getting the victory.
Mm-hmm.
And I jokingly in a piece for you suggested that Faith Kipyegon could be the athlete of the year because of just winning every race, winning at 1,500, at 1,000, and at 800.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I mean Duplantis with his either one or two world records, depending how you look at it,
Sure.
has been magnificent. But I sort of tongue-in-cheek was saying that Faith Kipyegon had a range of distances, whereas Duplantis, all he did was pole vault over a bar.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that Faith, that 157 was the only time under 158 this year. But also what was curious, too, was that Faith had not run an 800 since Rieti in 2015. So that tells you something.
Mm-hmm.
And the 1,000 meters is a tough race. And, I'm always impressed with Faith. I think that she ran really well. The women's 3,000 with Helen O'Beary was fantastic. Laura Whiteman, very close to her PB at a quarter of a second.
Yeah.
And Jessica Hull, the Australian woman who set Aussie records in the 1,500 and the 5,000, broke the record in the 3,000 too. So, I thought that Doha was just fantastic. And
just go back to Faith for a moment.
Yeah.
Of course, she won the Olympics in 2016, won the World Championship in 2017, and then had her daughter.
Yeah.
And when she came back in 2019, she ran in pre and immediately picked up an injury and only ran once more before the World Championships in Doha, but managed to produce the PR there.
Yeah.
And again, I spoke to her a couple of months back, and she said she was really finding training difficult because normally she trains with a group, and social distancing meant that they had to train on their own. And so really not knowing what kind of shape she was in, really, she comes to Europe and wins every race in sight.
Yeah, yeah. No,
So my goodness me, what could she do, Larry, if she were fit?
yeah, I know. That's the funny thing. That's the funny thing. And she's such a ferocious racer. I just remember
Mm.
her battling Dibaba,
Mm-hmm.
and that was quite interesting. And she didn't give up on Safan Hassan last year in
No.
Doha when
Mm-hmm.
Hassan was in such fine shape too. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that Faith uh, is an amazing athlete. And again, hats off to Mondo Duplantis, who's had
Yeah.
I think 16 pole vault competitions since
Mm-hmm.
July, and he's been everywhere. And it's
Yeah.
you
Mm-hmm.
know he should be given the world outdoor record too. I still think that's rather silly. Um, don't it's confusing enough that he jumps outdoors, but since it's not and everything else is an outdoor record, and then we also have indoor records. So why don't we do that in the pole vault? It just
Yeah. Now,
confuses the people.
the one thing that worries me a little bit with the pole vault, perhaps
Okay.
you could put my mind at rest. When he competed in Monaco, his mom drove from Sweden down to Monaco
Sure.
because he didn't trust the poles to an
Right.
airplane. Do you think she had to drive all the way to Doha?
Boy, I hope not, because that's a long drive. You
That's a
know,
long drive.
I don't think it's something that I would encourage anyone to do. But maybe they got a nice, Swedish airline or Scandinavian or
Yeah.
executive. Well, I guess a couple of the London Marathon just took the top four Kenyans to London for the marathon on one of those executive planes.
Yeah.
And they did a little press release about that today. So four people on a plane, I guess that's good social distancing.
Yeah.
I hope you don't have to social distance poles and pole vaulting, but because that could be a challenge. Um,
Yeah.
Athletes of the year, Mondo and Faith, or do you have other suggestions?
Yeah, I would go with those two.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
it's
think,
interesting. It's interesting that the athletes who haven't competed at all this year, who would have been in the running,
yeah,
or who've only competed once, say. But yeah, I mean, I think those two went out and did the business. I mean, Mondo, from the time when he broke the world record in Glasgow in February, as you say, it looked as if he really hasn't stopped competing since.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
No,
mean,
he's had a
Faith,
tremendous. Yeah,
yeah, Faith was stuck in Kenya, managed to come to Europe. I believe she did it in two trips, but she came for I think it was six races and won the lot. So you can't really do better than that.
no. Then you've got Joshua Cheptegei that's already got the 5,000 record, and on the 7th he's going to try for the 10,000. I
Mm-hmm.
think that'll be even more difficult than his 5, but I think he's got a shot at it. Um, Ryan Krauser, who has now 10 of the 14 longest throws of 2020, and he has the longest throw, I believe, since 1983, with his 2274. So just pretty amazing um, this year. I think that's something that we should make a comment about too, is that with the dearth of competitions for a lot of these athletes, they got to spend time training. Now, many of the cases, the non-technical events, by that I mean it's more difficult, but you can do sprint work, distance work, quality work on roads, on a grass oval. It's a challenge in the technical events, the pole vault, the jumps, the shot, without the proper facilities. I guess Ryan Krauser built a ring about a short walk from his house in the local high school yard. So it's kind of cool. Um, but I think that A lot of athletes, knowing they couldn't control anything else, could control them getting out and working out once or twice a day. And you've seen some tremendous performances for the ones who decided to go out. Um,
Yeah.
I found a result on our friend Dina Asher Smith. She did another little race about a week or so ago, another 150. And in talking to a couple of the brands, I couldn't get anybody to go on the record, but it seems like there is a lack of something's being lost in translation between the managers and the athletic brands. The athletic brands demand a certain number of competitions a year, and by competition, that means events where you have other athletes competing, where the media can promote, where there's photographs or video or some recording so that you can see brand logos and things. And that hasn't happened in some of these cases. And there's going to be some questions about, did you fulfill your contract? So that's going to be an interesting one to deal with.
That is happening here because I have heard that some British athletes are being told that your contract said that you had to compete in the Olympics this year and you didn't.
Wow. That's insane. I wonder how they deal with that. Well, that may be a topic.
Can I just go back to Doha for a moment?
Sure.
I was impressed with Peyton Chadwick, Talia Brooks, and Cindy O'Feely, who, not satisfied with just doing the 100 hurdles, all did another event, just to keep themselves out of mischief.
I liked your comment on that. That's true. I enjoyed the interview with Peyton. We posted all those interviews up on, which I really enjoyed, up on Facebook and stuff. What I was a little miffed about, Stuart, was that in every other meet this year, we've been able to get wonderful photos.
Yeah.
And in the meets where it was more challenging, you have that wonderful camera and you'll be able to get things off BBC TV. And I had a couple conversations with folks at Doha or involved tertiary Doha, and they told me, they didn't do any photos for it. And I'm kind of going, wow, how do you not do photos for a big track meet? And
unfortunately, I talked to Matt Quine about this, media officer, and he said, unfortunately, it's down to each individual meet whether they do photos or not.
Yeah, Matt sent me a couple nice notes on Sunday about that. I think I'm going to do a column on suggestions for meet directors, how to get your meets covered. That's just silliness. The London Marathon, we know it's happening next week. You and I like to spend our time on track and field, but this is only the second, I think this is the third marathon in London I've missed in 2 decades. So a little disappointing. It should be a good race. I'll watch it on TV. There's going to be virtual pressers, so I'm going to get some questions in on those Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and we'll have to see how those things go.
And of course, one of the things about the program for the day, which of course I hadn't thought of, but it's inevitable, that the races, of course, are not in any way concurrent.
Yeah.
Because you have to finish the women's race, which starts 7 a.m. local time, and then you have the men's race, I think it's 10 a.m.
Yeah.
And then the wheelchair at 1, because you simply wouldn't have space, and it wouldn't be safe to have people running around because of the 19 laps round the park.
That's just insane. Think about that, because someone runs a 2:07 marathon and another person runs a 2:12, they're going to be lapped. So if someone runs a 2:04 and a 2:12, they're going to get lapped twice. So that's going to be rather interesting. And then these virtual marathons, I saw a guy, I was waiting for Starbucks the other day with my mask on. They have little lines out here when you do those kind of things. And I saw a gentleman had a picture of a famous trail race in the Santa Cruz Mountains and asked him if he'd done any of the virtual races. And he said, no, he goes, they're not real races. Well, that's not what everybody thinks because there's 45,000 people who signed up for the London virtual race. There were, I believe, 25,000 who signed up for Boston and 19,500 finished. And there's some guy ran 2:21 on a virtual marathon. So, it's just boggles my mind.
Well, I have a friend who did one in her yard on the original April date, and she's doing it again on roads. So she's actually doing the London Marathon twice this year.
Oh my gosh. That's just craziness. Okay, what do we got? So next is the final track meet of the season, I believe, is in Nairobi, Kenya, the Kip Keino Classic. Kip was the 1968 gold medalist, the 1500. He also took a medal in the 5,000 in 68, and then in 72 he was silver in the 1500, gold in the steeplechase. An amazing athlete. Got to interview him a few years ago, and he was charming as ever. They're going to let 5,000 people in on the track or in the facility, and they've got some great races lined up. So Helen O'Beary, I think, is racing there again, and against Beatrice Chepkoech, and there's going to be a big steeplechase with Concelos Kipruto and the Moroccan El Bakali. So there'll be some good stuff. I mean, they could do all distance races and the crowd would go crazy, but they have sprints and everything else, and it should be a lot of fun. Any thoughts on that race? Have you done anything did any reading on the Kip Keino Classic?
Well, no, but I mean, I know a number of Kenyan athletes who've been very frustrated that they haven't had many opportunities this year. So I think it'll be great that it's happening. It's quite late in the year, and you just wonder if people will be a little anxious that they're still competing at that stage when really they would prefer to be resting and then getting into the winter.
Yeah.
But then, interesting, I was talking to a British athlete who said, well, actually, I'm not taking a break because I feel I had my break in March, April, May.
Wow. It's really tough, I think, for athletes based in Europe because they have the Europeans, the Worlds, and the Olympics. But if you're a Brit, you now have the Commonwealth Games, World Championships, Europeans, and Olympics. And so if an average elite athlete career is 4 years and an above average is 8 to 12, it's only every fourth year that you get a break. And you wonder, even with the advent of better nutrition, better sponsorship, what that does to an athlete's career. I do think we're getting to the point where there are way too many events, and I'd rather take certain events and really upgrade them, and then take other events and set up separate tours. The Continental Tour was brilliant, but the permit meetings in Europe, I'm trying to put together the idea of going to Europe from June till September and go to 2 meets a week, each week. And I think I could go from country to country and figure it out, and it'd be a lot of fun. And then, of course, come back to Britain for the Diamond League meets, although people are saying that, have you heard anything more about British athletics not doing the Diamond League next year?
No, nothing official has been said. It's just that they're in this consultation period over restructuring, and some people have been told that their jobs are on the line, including all the people who deliver the Diamond Leagues.
Wow. That's just disappointing.
Well, I personally think it's madness, but
yeah, especially since it's so much of the revenue for British athletics is coming from that. And I put a couple pictures of Alan Pascoe up and tried to remind them to put him on speed dial. The Diocs, they're always charming as ever. And Papa Dioc made a great comment to BBC. He said that the French are gonna have to send their Marines in to get him. I don't think it's far from that right now. For whatever reason, I thought Senegal and France had an extradition treaty, but when the president of your country says, "Yeah, we're not extraditing him," then you've got an issue. We know the French aren't happy, and this is just a stench that the sport, until people are properly punished, we're not going to be over it. Any deep thoughts?
Well, it was a very sad period for the sport, and without pointing fingers at anyone, you just wondered at the time, did no one know this was going on? And if they did, why didn't they? There was a famous question asked by a British interviewer who said to Seth Coe, are you corrupt or were you asleep?
Yes, I remember that.
I think that question can be asked to a lot of people.
Yeah, and Seb was not a happy camper about that one at all.
No, I'm not for one moment saying that he was corrupt, but the question in my mind is did no one really notice that it was happening?
The way I like to frame it is that anybody with two eyes and two ears, if you sat around the lobby of a world championship, you knew that something was up and that there was a bit of gravitas, perhaps a bit too much. I recall 2005 Helsinki, and I was meeting with the vice president of ASICS in the coffee shop in the headquarters hotel. And there was this beautiful IKEA-type store in the hotel. And there was a line of what I was told later were IAAF federation heads. And they were going in one line and coming out the other with big bags of goodies. And I asked somebody, what the hell is that? Oh, that's the welcome bags that the federations are getting. And I'm just kind of going, wow, God, I wish maybe I have to start a federation, But it was, you'd see things like that. You'd hear about people flying business class all over. And you just kind of go, there's a big difference in flying from San Francisco to Dubai in Emirates Air on business class and also in coach. And I've flown at coach a dozen times. And it's enjoyable, but you are a little beat up afterwards. And I've done the one now where I do San Francisco to Frankfurt to Dubai because I like the breakup on Lufthansa, and it still beats you up. Long flying is arduous, but when you go on business class, when you go on first class, it's a whole different world. And now we're in a situation with the sport where they're wondering where they've got money for the next, 16, 18 months, but they need new sponsors. And this is going to be a challenge. 2021, you think there's going to be any changes? Are we still going to have virtual meets, and are we going to be doing things remotely next year, my friend?
I wish I knew. I'm still not confident that next year is going to be what we used to call a normal year. Our government has just put in some restrictions and said to people, look, you may have to put up with these for 6 months.
How is your prime minister being perceived over in your charming country?
But he's gone down in the ratings. I mean, he's always been the type of person, if you use this expression, who flies by the seat of his pants.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, let's be fair. Nobody could have predicted what was going to happen, and nobody could have known how to deal with it.
Sure.
But the feeling is really that, and of course, he himself had COVID, and at one stage thought he was going to die of it.
Mm-hmm.
But the government just seems to try one thing. I mean, 2 weeks ago we had this thing: we want everyone back to work, and 2 weeks later, actually, we don't want people back to work. We want everyone working at home again. So there's been a lot of U-turns, and there's been a lot of changes, and the government don't seem to be on top of it. Whether anyone could have done better, of course, who knows? So it's certainly a difficult period, and you know, the numbers are getting worse, and really at the moment it seems that Christmas is in grave danger of being cancelled.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's over here. The next big thing is Halloween, and I think that it's going to be a very limited event around the country. I'm in California still. We're dealing with new forest fires today, but I head back to Wisconsin in a few weeks, and it's going to, and I think I'll be locked down there till the springtime. It's going to be, and so I'm just preparing myself. This is a new world. I will encourage you, if you get Netflix, to watch the movie Contagion. Very well done. It's from 2011. And some of the things we've actually lived through here, and some of the things are it's a little Hollywood, but it takes the idea of a worldwide epidemic and puts it in perspective. There's also a book called The Hot Zone. Was written in 2010, and it's about a real release of a biological agent in the U.S. in 2010. But the guy understood science enough to explain things. And over here in the U.S. right now, there is a vocal minority of Americans who question anything scientific. And I prefer to think about science the way they did in the Renaissance, which is the great creator, whoever he or she was or is. Science is there for a reason, to help understand the earth, and there's help it can do, but there's things we can't understand, unfortunately. And right now there's things we just can't understand. So, let's use a little common sense. So we did our pandemic news. We've done any changes. Andy Young, I've been enjoying the Andy Young interview. Thank you, Stuart. He seems like a good bloke, and he seems very straightforward, obviously enjoys what he does. I'm taken by reading his piece, and then I just interviewed Raina Ryder.
What's up?
And really, Raina is so much fun, and he's got a good sense. He reminds me a little bit of Tony Minicello, except Tony is a little more boisterous. And I like Tony a lot. And when I need something answered with no BS, I go to Lance Brauman and I go to Tony. I'll also include Raina in there. And actually, I think if I could understand him with his accent, I would ask Andy Young, too. Andy just seems a good guy. And now, I just saw that Gabriella Stafford DeBose went to the Bowerman Track Club. Did you hear about that?
No, I didn't.
There's something that showed up on, I think, on Sean's Ingle in The Guardian, one of his columns, and it got picked up in DME News Service. So I'll do some checking on that for us and just kind of see. But Andy's got Gemma and Laura Muir, and I was totally impressed with Gemma's season. Oh my gosh, Laura just got better and better with each race this year, which was really fun. And it takes us back to that whole thing we were talking about earlier, which is that really hats off to the meet directors who put these events on this year. My gosh, each one's been more and more challenging. And I was corresponding with Alessio Punzi, who is the World Athletics road running director. And he sent me a note last night just saying, Larry, I'll tell you later, but you cannot believe the effort we've had to put in to get the half marathoners into Poland. So that's going to be interesting to watch on the 17th. And it looks like there's teams from everywhere but the U.S. The United States, besides not having a U.S. championship outdoors the first time in 143 years. Yeah, I said it, 143 years, and I'm unhappy about that. They're not naming a team to go to Poland. And they said, well, you know, it's safety issues. I think it should have been an option. They should have said, athletes, here's ones we're going to name. We're going to help you get there. We think we can do this. For example, right now in San Francisco, at the United counters, if you go flying to Hawaii, you get a COVID test that you get the answer in 15 minutes before you go through TSA. And they're going to have one, and going to do that for all the flights to Europe and stuff. That's how the only way I'm going to be able to go anywhere, I think, for a while. And I just know in our conversations with the athletes who went to Europe, Donovan Brazier especially, Noah Lyles and Josephus Lyles, they all spoke about the challenges in traveling. Josephus had the funniest comment of the whole summer for me. And I think he kind of set me up, but he's kind of like that. I waited till the very end because I didn't want to ask him about his brother. I wanted the interview to be about Josephus. So I waited till minute 38 and I said, Josephus, are you competitive with your brother? And he just smiled and he said, when the sprinters work out, there's a lot of trash talking. Yes, he is competitive. And I just love that. And that's it's fun just to watch those kind of things, you know, and how they give each other a little bit of trouble. So they're, you know, all in all, we're very lucky. We've got amazing athletes to write about and coaches. And to a person, I think they're all fascinating. They all have their own stories. And they're, for the most part, really good people, you know. I think
the opposite of the Josephus quote was going back in a few years. I once heard Chris Akabusi ask, have you ever run with Edwin Moses? And he replied, no, I haven't. But I've run behind him.
Yes, that would be. You know, the interview that I want to look up, I seem to recall a presser where it was right before Karsten Warholm's first 400 hurdle race, and Edwin Moses gave him a little advice. And Edwin is Edwin, and he's very thoughtful, but sometimes it comes across as like he's an instructor. And I'm not sure Karsten appreciated the spirit with which it was given, but it gives you a good laugh. So I'll pull that up and try to see if I can break that out for us.
Yeah.
But Stuart, we've survived 36 minutes. Another athletics chat's about to put into the pasture. Are you going to play golf this week?
I'm hoping to, perhaps tomorrow, or perhaps Friday, or perhaps both. It's the weather is just beginning to break, and it could rain, so we'll see how it goes.
Do you get a chance to play with your son?
Yeah, I'm due to play with him on Friday, provided the weather is okay.
Great. Now, you have a daughter who is a doctor, correct?
Doctor, yes.
And she's kind of in the front lines on COVID and stuff?
Well, she was, but in the area where she lives, they took her off the front line after 10 days because they said, look, in our little hospital, we've got 450 beds and only 44 COVID patients.
Wow.
So, and they never really had the peak. But,
Okay, good.
but she's still in the hospital, and you never know who's going to
Oh, no, no, just we'll keep her in
encounter.
our thoughts and prayers. Have you been able to see your grandkids?
Well, I've seen them probably 5 times in 6 months.
Okay, okay, yeah, I just,
And at
are
the
you guys,
moment, we're still all right. But again, that could change. Some parts of the UK, you cannot go into anyone else's house.
now, can you go around London, or is there certain areas that are locked down right now?
There's none of it's locked down. But I haven't been to London for since I started. I've been to London for 6 months,
Okay.
and I have no plans to go anytime soon. Because the problem is public transport.
Okay.
You just cannot social distance on the trains and buses.
Are they actually running?
Yes, yes.
Okay, wow. See, I used to love the buses. I mean, my favorite was London to Birmingham, London to Manchester for about 20 quid. And
Yes, yeah.
they're different than American buses because they're clean and you felt safe on them. So that was a good thing. Do you think that there will be an indoor season in the UK?
Well, if they're not doing Diamond Leagues, I can't see them doing Grand Prix. I think there will have to be British Championships, but I can't really see anyone going to China for the World Indoors, even if it's on.
I just don't get that one at all. The 2022 Olympics, there is no conversation about that at all right now. Because they can't even figure out if they're going to have 2021. So I'm preparing myself that my 10th Summer Olympics will be in 2024 in Paris, and that unfortunately, we'll have to see what happens. But Stuart, I'm going to bid adieu, and thank you again. We've completed Athletics Chat 20. This is Stuart Weir in Oxford, England, the intellectual capital of the world. This is Larry Eder in San Jose, California. And thank you again, my friend, and I will see you next week. Talk to you soon.
Goodbye.
Bye now.
Goodbye.
Hey, sports fans. It's me, Larry Eder. It's Run Blog Run, and this is your favorite program in the known universe, Athletics Chat. Next to Socialing the Distance, this is your favorite. Although I'm watching Euphoria right now for the second time on Netflix, and it's quite good. I do recommend it. Anyway, so you know the deal. Once a week, Stuart Weir, the European editor for RunBlogRun. Did I make him an editor today? He's a European senior writer, for RunBlogRun. He's based in Oxford, England, the intellectual capital of the world. They've had a university there before the University of Paris. I think Paris was about 1130, and Oxford's been around since about 1050, so for a while. Anyway, Stuart lives there, and I am habitating in San Jose, California. I've been here off and on since 1974, and I'm in my parents' house. And in the middle of October, I'm going back to Wisconsin to be in Fort Atkinson, Wisconsin, where I have a lovely farmhouse and friends. And I go to a place called Scotty's Eat More, which is the greatest dive in the world for breakfast, and with real characters. It could be its own really nice TV show. So I've digressed already. But so today, what do we talk about? Today we talked about the Doha Diamond League. It was the last meet of the season. Doha is normally the first big outdoor elite meet of the season. It's normally held in the middle of May, and then we go to Shanghai, and then we go to Prefontaine, and then we go to Rome and all that stuff. Well, this year it was the last one, and they did a great job. Some pretty amazing performances. Arthur Cease from South Africa won the 200 in a PB. There was a very fast 800 meters. There was a brilliant 1500. Stuart McSewan from Australia took the Australian record for the 1500 from Ryan Gregson. He now owns the 1500, the 3000, and the 10,000. And he's, I believe, Stuart's running the 10 on October 7th, seeing if he can take that record down a wee bit. So we shall see. Mondo Duplantis, Sam Kendricks, and Renaud Villeneuve tied at 582, a rather pedestrian height for them, since Mondo has had, I think, 16 meets and what about 7 of them over 6 meters? So I'll have to go back and check. But pretty amazing season and a long season for these guys, although it was rather compact, July and August and now September. On the women's side, Faith Kipyegon, her first 800 since Rieti 2015. She ran on 157.8, fastest time in the world. She won 1,000 meters a couple times. 1,500 she ran quite well as well. And Stuart thinks she should be the athlete of the year, which is, my thoughts exactly. Pretty impressive. Helen Obiri, another argument for athlete of the year. 8:22, just a screaming 3,000 meter. In fact, 7 of the women behind her got personal best. And some came, so close. Laura Waitman was, a quarter of a second off. And Jessica Hull, after a 1,500 Aussie record and a 5,000 Aussie record, now set a 3,000 record. And I thought a 3,000, I thought she'd run about 10 seconds faster, but I just think she's wiped. Jessica's a farmer duck, a University of Oregon athlete, and has been running very, very well. So congratulations to Jessica, and the Aussies have done quite well this season. But the Doha meet was fantastic. What was weird was normally the Doha Stadium is full, and it's full of fans from the Philippines, from Kenya, and from Ethiopia. And how, you ask, in Doha, Qatar? Well, they're normally the, what would you call them? Transient workers, immigrant workers that do a lot of the work in Qatar. And what the meet directors normally do is they bring in a big rock star from the Philippines, and they give them discounts on food and shirts and stuff like that. And the place is rocking. I've gone to the meet, I think, 8 times in 10 years and absolutely love the meet. It's a great way to start the season. The flights from San Francisco are rather long, but they're still fun, and they get to catch up on movies. So, anywho's, it's the Doha meet. I hope to get back there next year. I love the meet direction. My only caveat was I wish they would have supplied photos to media post-event so we had something that we could showcase the meet on. When I do coverage of the meet, as you know, we're on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram with photos. We do our stories on RunBlogRun, and then we distribute them through Buffer as well. And we also have our nightly newsletter. And photos make everything look better, and it gives you a view of what's going on. But we did include some wonderful videos from the mix zone, so thank you, meet directors in Doha. And then we talked about a few other things as well. The London Marathon's coming up next week, October 4th. That's going to be very, very fast. Understand the women starts at 7, the men starts at 10. Wheelchair, I think, will be at 1 p.m. Why? You got a loop around St. James Park, 19.5 laps. Someone runs a 2:04, another person runs a 2:09. They're getting lapped. So it's a little craziness. But London figured out how to do it. And then everything else is a virtual race there, too. So BBC will be covering it. We'll be covering it live as well, which means that I, just stay up all night and have some really good coffee from Pete's, which will be a lot of fun. But a couple years ago, I think I covered Berlin, staying up all night in Hawaii in 2017. So this shouldn't be too bad. Anyway, so we talked about London. We talked about Doha. What do we got coming up? October 7th is going to be Joshua Cheptegei going after Kenenisa Bekele's 26:17.8 10,000 meter record. It's going to be tougher than the 5,000 challenge for him. It's just going to be tough. And Joshua is a great athlete, but Bekele was so on form at that time. So can he do it? I think he'll break the record by maybe a second and a half, but it's going to be close, and it's going to be exciting. And thanks to NN Running Team and the Valencia World Record Day, you'll be able to watch it from España. So it should be a lot of fun. What else do we have going on in the world? Well, most of the marathons have been shut down for this year. I just put up a note that California International is going to be shut down, but you can't do them right now with COVID. But we want to talk about athletes of the year, and the no-brainer is on the men's side, Mondo Duplantis, but I think Ryan Krauser should get a good pat on the back too. And I think there's a few other athletes out there too. We'll see what happens with Joshua Cheptegei as well. The Ugandan distance runner is in great form and virtually runs a world record anytime he wants to. But the thing about it is there's a lot of work involved there, and the level of training that he's doing it at needs to be respected. And he makes it look easy because he's that damn good, okay? When someone runs a 4-minute mile or breaks a 4-minute mile, you go, my gosh, they look so relaxed. And there's been, 5,500 4-minute miles. It's difficult to do. It requires endurance, speed endurance, strength, perfect storm. And then you've got people who can put 3 miles like that, a 4:02 pace, together in a 5,000 world record. World records are meant to be tough. They're meant to be respected. You're not going to break them every day. People that do them a couple times during a season, it's impressive. But remember the great Ron Clark from the 1960s. At one time, he held, I believe, the world records from 2 miles to 10,000, actually up to an hour. And then Gaston Rollins broke his hour record. The pretty impressive Belgian who ran an 8:40 when he was 42 in the steeplechase. Kind of impressive there too. But athletes of the year. So Mondo Duplantis, I think, number one on the men's side. Ryan Krauser, you got to tip the hat to. Joshua Cheptegei could do it. And then on the women's side, Stuart is talking about Faith Kipyegon. I think Faith is a great argument. World leader in the 800, world leader in the 1,000, and a very fast time in the 1,500. But then you look at people like Elaine Thompson, Fast Elaine, 1085, 1087, 1086 this season, and a very compact season. You look at athletes like Laura Muir. Look how many times she's gone sub 4 minutes in Gemma Ricci. So there's some good arguments out there for some time. And Shelby Houlihan. Shelby has just been absolutely fantastic. If you get a chance, know that Dave Hunter is writing for us again. David was taking a little bit of a break, and part of it was we were trying to find new sponsors, and I had to watch what extra cost and stuff we were dealing with. And David just did a piece on Valerie Allman, the young woman who broke the American record for the discus, and 230 feet, I believe it was 2 inches, and 7:15 for 70:15 meters, 70.15. And the story has been really popular on the social media. In fact, our most popular story of the month, next to Dathan Ritzenheim. So I encourage you to read that as well. Sorry, got a little bit of caffeine I needed right there. What else for this Athletics Chat 20? We talked about the lockdowns in front of us. It looks like much of the U.S. is continuing to have challenges, and we have a national election in 4 weeks, and there's a lot of anxiety and frustration over that. And so that's going to take up most of America's attention. I sure hope people wear their mask and wash their hands. We understand the new strain of COVID may be a little more challenging, and then we also have the flu coming. So please, if you're in any of the risk groups, make sure you get your flu shot. I'm going to get mine this week. And the vaccines, we're hopefully going to see vaccines in wide distribution next year. Just don't know when. It takes time, and I think we're in this place where it's all about immediate gratification, and it just doesn't happen, especially in science, especially with nature, especially dealing with pandemics. So we've got to be patient. We got to take care of each other. This is Larry Eder, Run Blog Run, Athletics Chat 20. Stuart Weir, thank you again. 20 weeks you put up with me, and I really appreciate it. Mike Deering, thank you for producing, managing, and trying to keep me under control. It's a 12-step program. I appreciate it. Larry Eder, signing off.